A search is underway in the Utah countryside for the bodies of victims of serial killer Ted Bundy. Bundy was executed in Florida 6 months ago.
Find Richard Ramirez guilty of all 13 murders and 30 related felonies he was charged with.
Search is underway in the Utah countryside for the bodies of victims of serial killer Ted Bundy.
On January 24, 1989, a horrifying discovery was made in an abandoned factory in Kodo, east of central Tokyo. A 208-liter drum filled with concrete was uncovered, concealing a crime of unimaginable horror that had unfolded over the course of 44 days. The investigation began when police interrogated 2 young men the day before, suspecting them of murdering a woman and her child. During questioning, one suspect, believing his accomplice had already confessed, revealed the location of a body. However, the victim he referred to was an entirely different woman who had been murdered just 9 days earlier, shocking the officers. Following the lead, authorities arrived at the scene, where the sight of the concrete drum immediately raised suspicion. Upon breaking it open, a sickening stench filled the air. Inside, strands of hair and a blanket wrapped around a severely brutalized body painted a gruesome picture. The victim had suffered unspeakable violence, her features rendered unrecognizable. Medical examination revealed extensive fractures, extreme torture, and severe trauma to her uterus. Further examination confirmed she had been pregnant at the time of her death. Her identity was established only through fingerprint analysis. Today, we share the story of Junko Furuta, a young girl whose life was taken too soon. This is a story of remembrance, a call for awareness, and a tribute to her strength. While this is a tragic account, we will approach it with the utmost sensitivity, focusing on her life, the injustice she endured, and the lessons we must learn from her story. Too often, stories of tragedy fade into history, but it is our duty to remember Junko, not for the pain she suffered, but for the life she lived, the person she was, and the impact she left behind. Her story is more than just a case. It is a lesson on the importance of vigilance, justice, and the collective responsibility we all share in protecting the vulnerable. Junko Furuta was born in Misato, Saitama Prefecture, Japan, in 1971. She was the middle child in a loving family and was known for her warm, compassionate nature. From a young age, Junko was bright and hardworking, always striving to achieve her dreams. She had a deep sense of responsibility, both toward her studies and toward those around her. In high school, Junko was admired by her classmates for her intelligence and her determination. Unlike many teenagers her age, she was not easily swayed by peer pressure. She was a diligent student who stayed away from trouble, choosing instead to focus on her education and her aspirations. Junko dreamed of working in the electronics industry, an area that fascinated her. She had already secured a job offer at a respected company, proving her dedication and hard work. Her future was bright, and she had every reason to look forward to it with hope. Friends recall her as someone who was kind, polite, and considerate. She had a strong moral compass and carried herself with grace. Those who knew her describe her as a young woman with limitless potential, someone who could have contributed greatly to the world had she been given the chance. In late 1988, Junko's life was unjustly taken from her. She became the victim of an unimaginable crime, one that shocked Japan and the world. The details of what she endured are deeply painful, and while we will not dwell on them in graphic detail, it is important to acknowledge the immense suffering she faced. On November 25, 1988, Junko failed to return home. Concerned, her parents immediately reported her missing. Hours later, they received a phone call from Junko herself, claiming she had run away and was staying with a friend. The abrupt call raised suspicions, but they had no idea of the nightmare she was enduring. That night, Junko had encountered a classmate, Hiroshi Miyano, a young man obsessed with her. Accompanied by his friend Nobuharu Minato, Hiroshi was prowling the streets of Misato, seeking potential victims to rob and assault. Spotting Junko riding her bicycle home around 8:30 p.m., Hiroshi devised a sinister plan. He ordered Minato to knock her off the bike and flee. Feigning concern, Hiroshi approached, offering to escort her home. Unaware of his true intentions, Junko accepted his help. Once alone, Hiroshi revealed his true nature. He threatened her life, claiming to be affiliated with the Yakuza, a notorious Japanese criminal syndicate engaged in extortion, drug trafficking, and human trafficking. Paralyzed by fear, Junko ceased resisting as Hiroshi repeatedly assaulted her. Afterward, he took her to a hotel where he called his friends, Shinji Minato, Joe Ogura, and Yasushi Watanabe, to boast about his actions. One of them, Joe Ogura, suggested keeping her captive for their continued abuse. This group had a history of violence, having recently abducted, assaulted, and released another victim under threat. At 3 a.m., they took Junko to a nearby park, where they threatened her once more, warning her that any attempt to escape or speak out would result in her family's murder. They then took her to Minato's home in the Ayase district of Adachi, where her ordeal truly began. From the moment she arrived, Junko was subjected to relentless abuse. The perpetrators forced her to call her parents on November 27th, convincing them she was safe and staying with a friend. Believing their daughter was unharmed, her family informed the police, leading them to halt their investigation. Minato's parents, who lived in the house, saw Junko but were too afraid to intervene. Forced to pretend she was a girlfriend of one of the boys, she could only express her anguish through her silent suffering. The parents, aware of their son's violent nature and his connections to the Yakuza, chose inaction out of fear. What followed was one of the most horrific cases of prolonged abuse ever recorded. Their home became a den of torture, where gang members and even Yakuza affiliates took turns subjecting Junko to relentless torment. Within a week, she had been raped and beaten over 100 times. She was stripped of food, left naked, and humiliated in every way imaginable. The brutality escalated with each passing day as the tormentors devised increasingly sadistic ways to inflict suffering. Junko was subjected to a prolonged period of captivity and abuse at the hands of individuals who should never have had the power to harm her. During this time, she endured cruelty beyond comprehension. The severity of what she faced revealed significant flaws in the systems designed to protect people like her. Her suffering went unnoticed for too long, despite warning signs, highlighting the necessity for communities to be more vigilant and responsive when someone is in danger. Though Junko was in a situation no one should ever have to endure, she displayed remarkable resilience. It is a testament to her inner strength that she endured for as long as she did, despite the unimaginable pain and suffering inflicted upon her. Today, we remember Junko Furuta not for the tragedy she endured, but for the person she was. A bright, ambitious, and kind young woman with dreams and aspirations. It is important to honor her memory by ensuring her story is never forgotten. Awareness is a powerful tool, and by sharing her story, we take a step toward a world where justice prevails and such horrors are never repeated. Her story is also a reminder of the importance of looking out for one another. If we see signs of someone in distress, it is crucial that we do not look away. Communities must work together to create safer environments where those at risk can seek help without fear. Let Junko's story serve as a call to action to protect the vulnerable, advocate for stronger protections, and ensure that victims receive the justice they deserve. From Junko's story, we learn the importance of vigilance, empathy, and action. Violence does not occur in isolation. It happens in communities, and it is the responsibility of society to ensure that no one suffers in silence. Her case exposed the urgent need for stricter laws, better victim protection, and greater awareness about the warning signs of abuse. Furthermore, her story teaches us the importance of speaking out. Whether it is supporting survivors, advocating for policy changes, or simply educating ourselves on how to recognize and prevent violence, every effort matters. Silence allows injustice to persist, but awareness and action can bring about change. Junko Furuta was more than the tragedy that befell her. She was a daughter, a friend, and a young woman with dreams. By remembering her, we honor her life and ensure that her suffering was not in vain. We owe it to her and to countless others like her to work toward a world where kindness, justice, and protection prevail over cruelty and indifference. Though Junko is no longer with us, her memory lives on. By sharing her story with care and compassion, we ensure that she is never forgotten. Let us carry forward her light and work toward a future where no one suffers as she did. The case sent shockwaves throughout Japan, leaving an enduring scar on the nation's consciousness. Even decades later, Junko Furuta's tragic story remains one of the most disturbing and heartbreaking crimes in modern history.